Hello Exile and welcome to Noodle's first video in the lore series on Path of Exile. This video covers Act 1. Let's get started. Path of Exile is an action RPG that takes place on the fictional continent of Wraeclast. Wraeclast has been devastated by a massive apocalyptic event called the Cataclysm that took place 300 years before you start the game. To the southeast of Wraeclast is an island called Oriath, which has remained untouched by the Cataclysm. In the beginning of this game, you choose one of 7 characters banished or exiled from Oriath. You are sent to Wraeclast by ship as punishment for your crimes in Oriath by the High Templar named Dominus. It is currently the year 1599 IC, which stands for Imperialis Conceptus, or Conception of the Empire. The empire conceived was called the Eternal Empire, and its people were called the Eternals. The empire ruled from Wraeclast, but it rules no longer. Now the High Templars of Oriath are in power. Written history of Wraeclast dates back to 900 BIC, but it is believed that long before then people and gods themselves roamed the world. The High Templars rule Oriath from the capital city of Theopolis, and its people are the Oriath. The continent of Wraeclast has many different peoples currently living on it: the Asmiri, the Eternals, the Maraketh, the Ezamites, some Karui captives, and other exiles of Oriath like yourself. The Cataclysm has had many different devastating effects across Wraeclast for the past 300 years. On our journey from Oriath to Wraeclast, our ship wrecks. We wash up on the coast just south of a small town called Lioneye's Watch. As we travel around Wraeclast, we discover the rich history of civilizations, past and present. And while many terms and people I'm about to name may be unfamiliar, pieces will fall into place as we continue. Lioneye's Watch is an abandoned Eternal Army stronghold of Marcius Lioneye, who defended against attacks led by Kaum, leader of the Karui 300 years ago. Marcius Lioneye was a gemling captain of the Eternal Army, supported by the Emperor Chittus Parandus. A gemling is a person who has been implanted with virtue gems to give them more power. We will learn more about these soon. Kaum's attack was plotted by High Templar Vol, who led the Purity Rebellion, which we will learn more about later as well. I know it's a lot of information. Trust me, we will hear more about this. At the time, the High Templars were a religious order, not rulers. Kaum led his Karui to this south coast on canoes, the same coast we wake up on, to lay siege to Lioneye's Watch. Marcius Lioneye, so named because he was missing an eye but had it replaced with a golden gem, met the siege with his Gemling Legion. After some fighting, the Karui turned and fled, and Marcius Lioneye and his army followed, assuming Kaum had given up. It was known by many, including Marcius, that the Karui only fought with blades in melee combat, as was their tradition. Thus, when Kaum's melee army fled, Marcius believed that was his entire force, as no ranged tactics were used by the Karui traditionally. However, the clever Hiri, Kaum's niece, had noticed this tradition spoke only of men, so with Kaum's permission, she and all the Karui women trained with Vol's greatest archers. And when Marcius's army gave chase to the Karui led by Kaum, Hiri and her bow women laid waste to them. With that, around 1319 IC, Lioneye's Watch fell to the Karui. The Karui turned Lioneye's Watch and its surroundings into the first Karui settlement on Wraeclast, as the Karui are native to the island Namakanui. When the Cataclysm began, the Watch was abandoned and eventually taken over by some exiles of Oriath. When our chosen exile wakes up on the beach, we must fight through undead and monsters to find the entrance to Lioneye's Watch, which is guarded by a very large undead man, the blacksmith Hillock. Hillock was an exile himself, accused of raping and killing many people, including children, back in Oriath. He has been terrorizing the area around Lioneye's Watch. Once we kill Hillock, we are let into Lioneye's Watch to meet 3 other Oriathan exiles: Nessa, Bestel, and Tarkley. Nessa is a kind woman originally from Theopolis who takes care of the exiles in this watch. Bestel, the only survivor of the Marigold's shipwreck, is an aspiring poet. And Tarkley is a former pirate and now protector of Lioneye's Watch. Having proven ourselves fit and uncorrupted by slaying Hillock, these exiles ask for some help with simple tasks such as fetching a medicine kit and exploring the carnage around the watch. We discover that the cataclysm has not only risen the dead in the area, but also corrupted the wildlife. Quests have us traveling farther north to search for additional supplies or impending threats on Lioneye's watch. As we make our way further inland on Wraeclast, we learn through carvings what befell Kaum and his Karui that lingered in the area when the cataclysm began, 20 years after the fall of Lioneye's watch to the Karui. As mentioned, the Karui's home is Namakanui, which is an island to the south of Wraeclast and west of Oriath. The Karui have long been captured and enslaved by Oriathans and Eternals. High Templar Vol asked King Kaum to assist in the Purity Rebellion, and in return the enslaved Karui would be freed. Kaum agreed and successfully overthrew Lioneye's watch, as mentioned. Kaum and his remaining warriors slaughtered the local Eternal citizens while creating their settlement. Once the cataclysm hit, the dead on both sides of that battle rose up and began to attack the remaining Karui near Lioneye's watch. The normal practice of the Karui was to bury their dead to honor them, but, quote, "The earth of Wraeclast rejects the dead. The black spirit of storm and dream now reaches into the ground and raises up our slain imperial foes. It leads the fallen from their graves and drives them to fight us beyond the end, rotted tooth and jagged nail. Our own remembered have joined their cursed ranks." Now Kaum instructed his people to begin burning the bodies that had risen. However, the cataclysm also corrupts the living. The local animals turned into monsters, and from writings we can infer that Kaum himself was driven to madness by the cataclysm. Kaum resumed ancient and abandoned traditions of the Karui, including sacrificing and consuming the flesh of his own people. Kaum's journey from triumph to desperation to madness are written across Act 1 on the weathered carvings. Many of the writings about this time are from Lavianja, Kaum's advisor. Some are from Kaum himself. Kaum claimed he could hear the ancestors call to him, including the Karui god Tukahama. Kaum had dreams that Tukahama left an offering that will save the Karui, so Kaum led his people north, farther inland the continent of Wraeclast. Kaum brought his 500 finest warriors all the way to Highgate, into the mines under Mount Veruso, which we will learn more about in Act 4. As we make our way inland up the climb, we run into a Karui woman named Navali. Navali is being held in a cage surrounded by goatmen. When we approach, the goatmen all scatter or get crushed as a much larger goatman named the Fawn appears. When we kill the Fawn, we free Navali, a Karui Hatungo, or wise woman, who is actually an undead. However, she seems friendly and competent, and tells us that she can see visions of the future. These visions of the future can be purchased from Navali from this point onwards using silver coins. What silver coins represent or where they come from is unknown, but prophecies from Navali are their only use. The Axiom prison sits at the top of the climb, seemingly abandoned. Returning to Lioneye's watch, we learn that the Warden Brutus still resides in the prison and has since the Purity Rebellion. Brutus was turned into a monster using thaumaturgical virtue gems. Don't worry, I will explain more about these gems, but fun fact, the gems we use, skill and support gems, are virtue gems. Chevron of Umbra was a gifted thaumaturgist working as a student under Malachi, who we will also discuss more in a later video. Thaumaturgy is defined as miracle working, but in the context of Path of Exile, it refers to the practice of magic, specifically related to magic and experimentation involving these powerful virtue gems. Following the success of Kaum's siege on Lioneye's watch, Malachi was concerned the Karui would turn their attentions on the Empire. Chevron was instructed to have Brutus stop the Karui from ever reaching the inland of Wraeclast. Brutus, as he aged, had become interested in darker arts to preserve his life and strength. Brutus agreed to keep the Karui from passing, and also agreed to Chevron's thaumaturgy in hopes of becoming a more powerful being. After an agonizing, days-long experiment, Chevron was successful in implanting a thaumaturgical gem into Brutus, but Brutus was too powerful, and killed Chevron and all her aides once he awoke. Any remaining guards fled the prison and locked him inside. It is said Brutus beat his arms to a bloody pulp trying to break free. For 300 years, Brutus has resided in the prison as this thaumaturgical monster. As we approach the warden's quarters of the prison, a woman stands above us, looking through Chevron's notebook on thaumaturgy that was left behind. This woman is Piety, who we will come to know quite well in our adventures. She is surprised to see an exile in the prison and leaves quickly. To continue on to inland Wraeclast, we must defeat Brutus. Upon his defeat, we exit the prison into an area called Prisoner's Gate. We follow the road north and find Piety again, standing at the gate. Using her own powers of thaumaturgy, Piety locks the gate and bars access inland. We must find our own way inland, Exile. After the Purity Rebellion, Chevron had created this thaumaturgical gate as a second defense against the Karui traveling inland. It seems Piety has thaumaturgical power to rival that of Chevron from 300 years ago. We will learn much more about Piety in future acts, but for now we know Piety as a woman from Oriath who works with a group called the Blackguards. The Blackguards work for the High Templars who currently rule Oriath. We need to find a way past the gate, and as we explore the area we find a path to the ship graveyard, a gloomy coastal landscape. Since Brutus has remained alive, trapped in the prison, we can infer Calm never bothered going through the prison. It seems Calm and his followers have traveled here as well, as indicated by the weathered carvings, likely taking this path or canoes from the coast to this ship graveyard. We read a carving that tells of how Calm and his 500 finest warriors continued on, while the remaining Karui of the settlement, led by Calm's niece Hiri, took canoes back to Namakanui. In this ship graveyard, we run into the ghostly Captain Fairgraves, who is stuck on the coast with his ship until we can retrieve his All-Flame. Fairgraves warns us of Merveil, a siren who lives in the caverns to the north, and also asks us to retrieve his All-Flame from the slave girl who stole it. From Bestel, we learn a bit about Fairgraves himself. He was a poet and a famous sailor who worked for High Templar Dominus. Using Karui's slave labor, he traveled around gathering documents about thaumaturgy for Dominus. He had been missing for the last 30 years, apparently stuck right here in the ship graveyard. When we return the All-Flame to Fairgraves, he reveals that the All-Flame could revive Fairgraves by taking life from others, planning to take our life for his own. Jerk. After a fight, Fairgraves disappears. For now. The caves to the north can take us further inland, but as Fairgraves warned, they are home to Merveil and her daughters. This cave system is called Siren's Cove. Merveil is the final boss of Act 1, and one of the saddest stories we come across. Merveil was a beautiful Oriathan woman who traveled to Wraeclast to attend the fights in the grand arena of Sarn. She was spotted by the soon-to-be champion and king of swords, Duresso, as he fought. When Duresso won his title, he shouted out to Merveil to marry him, and she accepted. Duresso's engagement gift to Merveil was the Star of Wraeclast, a beautiful but cursed necklace. The Star of Wraeclast held a virtue gem that was implanted in the throat of a woman named Kalisa Mas, an opera singer. She became a prolific singer through the power of this gem to a terrifying extent. A Sarn poet named Victorio wrote that, quote, "The gem at Kalisa's throat sparkled with starlight brilliance as her C-sharp shattered every pane of glass in the auditorium." Kalisa died at her final opera performance, and her gem was removed and put into the Star of Wraeclast. At first, she simply coveted the necklace, wearing it constantly and lashing out at anyone who touched it, clawing out the eye of a girl who touched the Star of Wraeclast at a party. Normal behavior. It had given her a beautiful singing voice, but it began to change her. Merveil would sneak out into the night, wandering the streets, coming home cold and covered in seaweed and slime. Her body became covered in odd lumps, her skin was blotchy, her teeth grew long and sharp. Merveil was pregnant at the time with Duresso's child and began to talk excitedly about the children she would have, how they'd be as beautiful as she was becoming. Duresso snuck out in the middle of the night and fled to Sarn to find a cure for this curse. Finding Duresso gone, Merveil ran to the sea and screamed. She waited on the beach for days, eating fish as her transformation continued. He never returned. Transformed into a terrifying tentacled siren, Merveil crawled into nearby caverns and gave birth to her first daughter. The cave systems under the continent of Wraeclast are immense, spanning from Oriath to Siren's Cove and farther east, as we will discover in Act 6. She has remained in these cave systems ever since, still wearing the Star of Wraeclast. Using her siren song, she lures sailors to their death, hence the ship graveyard, to feed herself and her daughters. Given the number of Merveil's daughters, it is possible she also mates with the shipwrecked sailors before eating them. She still believes Duressa will return, on one hand cursing him for leaving and not seeing her beauty, on the other pining for him. Upon killing Merveil, we exit the caverns and find ourselves in the southern forest, which is the beginning of Act 2. It's your boy Noodle. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this series, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, punch that bell button, you know, whatever they say. Check out my Patreon for exclusive videos and perks related to the lore series. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or actually come into my stream, twitch.tv/KittenCatNoodle. Stream schedule is updated on my Twitch page. Thank you again, and stay sane, Exile.